You're a lifter who wants to complete their first half marathon. Welcome back, hybrids, to another episode, and today I'm going to be taking you through the things you need to know as a lifter, someone who prioritizes strength or muscle gain in the gym, but they want to get ready for their first half marathon. I'm going to break down the things you need to know, the things you should be doing, the things you need to do to prepare, and hopefully to make your life easier and have some fun along the way. Let's not talk anymore, let's dive in. Okay, so let's go over some of the things you should probably know if you are a lifter and you want to get into running or you want to do your first half marathon. Obviously, running has taken off. A lot of people are getting involved in it and it's become bigger than it probably has ever been. I myself am also one of those people that has obviously joined that bandwagon over the past couple of years, and I've loved it and I never want to go back. So I don't blame you for wanting to get involved in this. It's awesome fun. Some of the pros of running that are going to help your lifting performance. You're going to have improved aerobic capacity, which means you're going to be fitter overall. You're going to be able to handle more work over a long period of time in the gym. You're probably going to be able to do more work in the gym and not feel as fatigued. You will also find, because you are fitter, you can have shorter rest periods, and sets don't destroy you as much as they did before. You will also find that now that because you're running, your energy expenditure has increased, which may mean that you can eat a little bit more and still stay the same body weight. It's also just an awesome way to get a new challenge and just get some general fitness improvements. Now, some negatives and things you need to consider. Don't expect to hit a PB on all of your main lifts, squat, bench, deadlift, or whatever it is you're training for while you're prepping for the half marathon. It is going to be hard, it is going to be challenging, and you are going to be extra sore and tired, particularly in the lower body. So keep that in mind. You may need to structure your training week to account for the fatigue that you're going to be experiencing. I've done a ton of videos on this where I've mentioned it. And you may want to consider the potential weight and or muscle loss that you will experience while undergoing this kind of training. Obviously, running a lot isn't exactly the most beneficial thing for muscle gain, so you may want to counteract that with steroids. Joking, you want to counteract that with obviously eating more, accounting for that in your training week, managing your fatigue and recovery, and everything like that. And obviously taking heaps of steroids as well. I'm going to be real with most of you lifters right now. It's not going to feel good. Running is not supposed to feel good if you've never done it before. It's not supposed to feel good if you're heavy, and obviously if you're above 80, 85 kilos. It's a lot of load you're going to be carrying after you do a number of steps, thousands of steps when you're running. You're carrying more weight. It's going to be hard. You're going to be sore. You may get overuse injuries, things like shin splints, ankle, tendinopathies, knee tendinopathies, runner's knee, all that kind of stuff. It's probably going to happen, and it's okay. It's not the end of the world. It doesn't mean you can't run. It just means you need to try and figure out ways or get support from people who can help you figure out ways how to account for those things, how to continue to progress while lifting in the gym, while running and navigating your way through all that. All those things are normal, but you may not experience any of them. But if you are a lifter, if you are especially on the heavier side, it is something you need to account for because it is probably going to happen. And honestly, it's just part of the process. You just got to work your way through it. Everyone's experienced it. How many times a week does the lifter need to run? So this one's tricky because it depends on how good you want to go and how much time you're giving yourself in order to prepare. I highly recommend you start out at a minimum of giving yourself 3 months to prepare. At a minimum. If you have never run before, give yourself at a minimum 3 months to prepare. That is plenty of time, but give yourself 3 months and put your head down and focus. The number of times you need to run, again, is going to be dependent on how good you want to go, how much energy you want to put towards it, if you want to put your lifting on hold completely, whatever. My recommendation is a minimum of 2. I have had people do it with a minimum of 1. Obviously, it was a lot harder for them and they didn't do as well, but that's totally fine. Performance is not your main goal when you go into your first half marathon. Just try to have fun. So do whatever works for you and works for your schedule. My recommendation is a minimum of 2 runs per week. If you can do more, wonderful, but you do not need to. 2 runs per week is plenty because you're probably going from not running at all or doing minimal cardio to now adding in 2 runs a week, which is actually quite a lot already as it is for you to get fitness improvements. You may not get any more benefits by doing 3, 4, 5, 6, whatever runs per week. Okay, so I started out with 2 and that worked out well. My first half marathon, I did it in an hour and 55 minutes. I started out running twice a week. I think towards the end of the training block, I increased my running up to 3 times per week, but twice per week was more than enough, and I got the majority of my fitness improvements just by running twice per week. The type of runs you should be doing though, you will need to do 1 long run, and this will be 1 long, slow run. Do not worry about pace. Just worry about building up the time on your legs and volume. So one long run. Do this whatever day suits you. This is going to be your longest run of the week and the one that takes up the most time. Pace isn't an issue. You start your long run anywhere between, maybe 3 or 4 kilometers if you're new to running at the beginning of your training block, maybe even less. And you want to work it all the way up to as much as the half marathon distance, but you do not need to do the half marathon distance. Plenty of people have success with running as little as 16 or 15 kilometers as their long run. If you do that, you will also be able to do the half marathon distance. Again, everything extra is just going to determine how good you go on the day. But if you just want to complete it, your long run, start at anywhere from 1 to 2 Ks and build your way up over that 3-month period up to that 16. Your second run of the week, again, you have 2 options here, and that would just be another easy run. Nothing complicated. You don't need to go intervals. You don't need to do threshold work or anything. If you don't know what that is, that's fine. Just do another run. And this would just be a shorter run. Again, similar pace to that long run, nice and slow, just focusing on building up the volume. And this shorter run could start out anywhere from as little as 0 and work your way up to as much as maybe 10 or 12 kilometers by the end of the training block. That way, by the end of your training block, in theory, and it does not need to be like this, but in theory, you should be finishing your training block prior to the taper, is that you've done anywhere between, say, 20 to 30 kilometers in your final training week or close to your final training week. 20 to 30 kilometers is roughly the benchmark that most people recommend. Again, some people may get away with more, some people may do a little bit less. It's really up to you, your size, your goals, and what your priorities are. Keep in mind, the more you run, probably the better you're going to go in the beginning. So if you do want to do really well, you probably need to look at running a little bit more and increasing that volume, and maybe even having a longer training block, because you're going to take a lot longer to ramp up that volume. But if you're new to running, you just want to do that 3-month period, start out as little as you can, work your way up to that 16K mark for that long run, and that short run can be anywhere between, again, as little as you can up to like 10 or 12 Ks. I wouldn't really worry about pace on that run either. If you do want to worry about pace on that second run of the week, I would just try to go a little bit faster than what you did on your long run. So if your long run is really slow, maybe on that faster, shorter run, just focus on trying to go a little bit faster than you did on that long run. When I say faster, whatever feels like something you can manage or maintain, or maybe even the race pace, the pace you want to maintain for the half marathon. It doesn't need to be more complicated than that. The main thing is just build up the volume and get used to running. It's going to feel like shit. You're going to run like an idiot anyway. Just fucking run and try to have a good time while doing it, and try to make it as easy on yourself as you can. Next thing I want to touch on is how to structure your training week, and I've done this so many times that it's not even funny. So please watch some of my previous videos if you haven't already, because I'll give you a lot more insight in those videos around this. But I will say this, if you're new to this channel, obviously subscribe, but also structuring your training week is going to be really important, because if particularly those who have strength as a goal still while training for the half marathon, maintaining their strength and doing all that kind of stuff, you need to understand that running is fatiguing on your lower body. So it is going to hinder your performance, particularly in the beginning until you kind of adapt. It's going to hinder your performance on doing a lot of those heavy lower body movements, squats, deadlifts, all that kind of stuff. So if you are worried about that and you want to optimize your training week in such a way that you experience the least amount of fatigue on your legs as possible, although avoiding it altogether is going to be literally impossible. Your legs are going to be fucked either way. I recommend moving your lifting sessions as far away from your running sessions as possible. So if you're doing your long run on a Monday, your heavy squats should be like on the Thursday or something like that. The reason why is you want to give yourself as much time to recover in between, so your legs aren't carrying as much fatigue when they go into that squat or go into that run next time you get there. Keep in mind, the way your training week structured is going to depend on obviously your schedule and all that kind of stuff, but you're probably not going to be able to have a perfect training week where things don't clash. Like if you're doing your long run on a Monday, hypothetically, and you're doing your heavy squats on a Thursday, and if you have to fit in another run somewhere in that training week, you may have to do it the day after your squat or 2 days after your squat, and you may still have a bit of soreness in your legs, and they may be a little bit fatigued still by the time you get to that next run or lifting session. It is going to be quite hard or impossible to have completely no lower body fatigue when going into any training session, whether it be running or lifting. It's just part of the process, but structuring your training week in such a way to account for that fatigue can ensure you get the best results and your performance isn't hindered when you need to lift or run. So try to move your sessions as far away from each other as you can. Alternatively, if you're going really hard, you can do your lifting and running sessions in the same day. I actually find that not too bad an option, particularly if I do my lower body lift first. So if I squat first and then I do my easy run or shorter run after that, my legs aren't sore yet because I've just trained them, and then I'm going for a run straight after. Some people will comment, oh, that's bad for hypertrophy, whatever. Again, if you're training for a half marathon, growing muscle probably isn't going to be your number one priority right now anyway, so don't worry too much about that. But if you just want to figure out a way to condense your training week and not train a million times in the week, training twice in a day or doing that lifting session and running session back to back is another option for you. Try out different things. Obviously, the more time you have to prepare, the easier it is going to be in terms of fatigue because you have a longer runway in order to get to that finish line. But if you have to condense a lot of hard training in a short amount of time, expect a lot of fatigue as well. So what does a lifter need to adjust in their training in order to ensure they get the best running performance possible on the day and the best lifting performance throughout this running training or half marathon training prep? There are a couple things. Obviously, structuring the training week is one thing I just mentioned. That's a big one. Another thing you may want to consider is reducing the total amount of lower body volume you're doing. The reason why is because you're doing so much running, which is lower body volume, that you're probably not going to be able to tolerate 10 to 15 sets of squats like you were before and still perform at your best. You may need to reduce the volume because the amount of volume you're doing on your legs is a lot. And if you want to prevent things like overuse injuries, or if you want to manage that fatigue a little bit better, doing as much volume, especially on the lower body, is probably not going to be your ally for now. Because we're training for the half marathon, we need to increase our running volume in order to prepare for race day. Therefore, it's probably not a good idea to have your running volume going up at the same time as your lifting volume at the same time. It's going to be really hard, particularly as a beginner, because this is all new to you. Your body hasn't adapted. It's literally shitting itself, okay? It's literally like, what the fuck is going on? So what I recommend is, as your running volume comes up, you may want to bring down your lifting volume. And that's going to help both manage fatigue. I don't think you'll lose strength if you keep the intensity high enough on that lower body training, but it's also going to ensure you're able to perform in your runs and perform in those lifting sessions. Realistically, if you always feel super fatigued after 5 sets of squats or whatever, what's the point in doing more? If the quality of the lift is going down, drop the volume. If the quality of those movements is going down at a certain volume, above your maximal recoverable volume, drop that volume down lower. Doing more is not always better if quality is diminishing. So there is a point of diminishing returns. I guarantee you're still going to maintain your strength while increasing that running volume. Your legs are fucked. They're actually saying stop. So just focus on quality for now. Focus on doing 4 or 5 really good sets of whatever movement pattern you're trying to train. You can't even get away with less. I get away with as little as 3 in some instances, particularly when I'm really peaking for a race. And all that is doing is just making sure I keep the wheels grooved, I keep the movement pattern trained, and it doesn't hinder my performance all that much because I'm accounting for fatigue and all of that volume that I'm doing on my legs when it comes to running, okay? So that's one thing you're gonna need to do. Another recommendation is obviously eating more. You may feel like you need to eat more. If you find you're losing weight too rapidly, eat more. Eating more is probably the easiest thing you can do because it's gonna be great. So maintaining strength, maintaining calories, dropping the volume a little bit of your total weight training sessions will do you a lot of good as the running volume increases in this half marathon preparation. This is particularly important for some of the strength athletes, and it's another adjustment they may need to make. For the strength athletes who primarily focus on squatting, benching, and deadlifting or heavy compound movements in their training, they may need to temporarily swap some of those movements, particularly the ones in the lower body, for more isolation-based exercises. This is so you can preserve muscle mass, but also diminish the amount of fatigue that you accumulate. Doing a set of quad extensions will help me keep the muscle mass in my quads, but it will be far less fatiguing than doing something like a squat. So doing things like isolation exercises, particularly for the lower body, can be really useful if you want to maintain some of the muscle size as opposed to doing compound lifts. Keep in mind, because we're running so much, the amount of fatigue we're accumulating is a lot. The last thing you're going to want to do after a big week of running is thinking, oh fuck, I've got to go squat right now. However, thinking, oh fuck, I can go and do my leg extensions, maintain most of that muscle, put some of that strength training on hold, but still maintain my muscle right now, that's totally fine. We're just focusing on what we need to do right now, and then we can pivot back to doing that heavy stuff again later if we wanted to do that and if you're struggling to manage that fatigue. You may not need to do this, but for me, when I did my first half marathon, I found it really hard to maintain the lower body volume doing those heavy deadlifts, heavy squats, so I had to replace some of those movements for more isolation-based exercises. And that actually meant I had to do more machines or exercises that were a little bit easier for me in terms of the total load and intensity of the movement that I was doing. All right, guys, thanks for watching. That's a wrap on another video. If you're a lifter getting ready for your half marathon, I hope you watched this and I hope you got something out of it. Keep in mind, if you need help, if you need guidance, if you aren't sure what to do, get a coach. I have online coaching spots available for anyone, anywhere in the world. Hybrid athletes, just like you, helping them get better at running, helping them get better at lifting. All you have to do is reach out and I'll do the rest. Hope you have the best prep possible if you are someone preparing for your half marathon. I wish you all the best and I hope you love it as much as I did. I'll see you guys next time. Thanks for watching.